Hello everyone, today in this video we'll be discussing the first module of user interface design. Okay, so whatever you see on your screen, that is the design made by the user interface designers. Okay, so how do you means design this one? What is the best practices and what are the different styles you can use? Those things are which we'll be discussing in this subject. Okay, so in the module 1 it's basically concerned with what are the different types of styles, and there are different definitions and terminologies used in this subject, and advantages, disadvantages, characteristics, and some principles. Okay, so that's all what is there, and there are few super important questions which I have noted down and I'll be discussing them in detail. So how do you remember and how do you write the answers in the exam, those things we'll be discussing now. Okay, so before starting, if you like this video, hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Your support helps me make more videos like this. So all the links can be found in the description box, you can go through it, and let's get started. So the first question is why is there a need for graphical user interface? Okay, so when the early screens were invented, at that time the screens did not have as interactive features as we are seeing now. Okay, so at that time the basic things are like whoever knows coding and the programming, they only understood what the terminologies mean, and those were just the text things. Okay, there were no icons also, so it were just the text things and it was very hard for the people to interact. Okay, so the first thing you will be writing is people since long they have been complaining regarding the complicated procedures and incomprehensible screens. So it was very hard for them to access the screens and do this things. Okay, so the developers then invested their time, effort, and money to GUI, which is graphical user interface. So after a lot of hard work and time, they invented the graphical user interface, in which there were interactive techniques wrapped into a package. So that was the need for graphical user interface. The next super important question is what is user interface? User interface is basically the interface between the user and the computer. So that interface is called as user interface. So it comes from the word HCI, which is human computer interaction. To interact between human and computer, there is an interface. That interface is called user interface. So it's a subset in the field of study of human computer interaction. That's the first important point which you have to write. After that, we will be defining user interface in some more detail. So what is user interface? The part of the computer and its software that people can see, hear, or touch and talk to, otherwise understand or direct. So all these things can be done using the interface, like you can interact with the computer totally. Then you have to write two things. There are two components in user interface. What are those two components? Input and output. What is input? Input is what the human gives to the computer. Input is what human gives to the computer. It is how a person communicates his or her needs or desire to the computer. Okay, that is what is called as input. Output is how the computer conveys the results to the user. So how the computer gives back the results, that is called as output. You only think what could be the importance and the benefits of a good design. If there is a good design, what will happen? You are doing a lot of things on daily day-to-day basis on the basis of the screen, right? By using the screen you are doing many things, so all those things will be well improved and a lot of time will be saved, or as well as your mental health will be in stable condition, right? If there is a good screen and everything is well arranged and in proper manner. A well designed interface and screen is terribly important to the users. It's the window to view the capabilities of the system. So by using screen only you can understand the system. So screen is a very important thing. So it's a vehicle to do the many critical tasks of the day, like the organization also, if they want to present the PPT and pitch their business ideas, all those things require a screen. So the screen should be good so that everything goes fine, right? So that is what is called. And if the screen is not proper, if it is confusing, it can cause the people's job to become difficult. Even they may leave that permanently, means they will leave the IT sector permanently just because of frustration caused due to the poor design of the screen. It might lead to frustration, aggression, and stress. If explicitly the benefits are asked, like what are the benefits of a good design, it's for more mark question. You have to imagine all the possible means the benefits that you can get from a good screen. So by using a good screen, the productivity will be increased and the screen time will be saved for each user. For example, if there is a user who spends 1 second less than the previous version because of good design, so what will happen? 1 second is saved in one device. Like that, there are totally 4.8 till 5 million devices. So that many seconds will be saved overall. That is equivalent to 1 person year. 1 person year means how much a person can work in a year. That much equivalent of time would be saved if we just means do the improvement of 1 second more than the previous time. Like for example, if it used to take 15 seconds for doing one task, now it takes 14 seconds because of a good design, then it is saving 1 second. Like that for all the screens, if it happens, it will save one person year time. Okay, so it is much more increased productivity. And there are many other benefits such as better screen enhances the screen performance and the productivity of the user. It is also lowering the training cost, and employee satisfaction is increased, customer satisfaction is increased. Many users will start using the device, the profit is gained, and the more data is generated, the mobile becomes more popular because of its good design, and identifying and resolving the problems also becomes much more simpler. So those are some of the basic benefits of having a good design. Moving on to the next question, which is explain the history of graphical user interface. So basically they can ask you the history of graphical user interface, or they can ask you the history of screen design. So you have to be very careful between these two questions. If they ask you about the graphical user interface, you have to start from the few decades where the computer's ability was very less, and either the people used to type and give commands to the computer. So those who know how to type, those who know how to use the computer, those only were the people who could use. But now we can see that whoever does not know what is coding also, they can also use the phone very easily, right, because of the graphical user interface. So initially that was the situation. Then what happened, then many people came and tried to interact with the computer and tried to find out what could be what could be made more better. So what happened is they started using the command language, question and answer, menu selection, function key selection, and form fill in. So that was one of the improvements that was happened initially. Then in 1970s there was a person called as Xerox Palo. So he, what he did is he introduced a typewriter. Typewriter means they will be typing and the inputs will be going to the computer, but still it was not that much good. So he invented an interface using a form of human gesturing. By using human gestures, we will be able to interact with the computer. That was an alternate to the typewriter. That happened in 1970s. Okay, after that in 1984 Apple released the first successful mass market system. Like this Macintosh was having a good GUI, by using which many large number of people could be using the system very successfully. So that happened in 1984. And after that in the same time parallelly the web was also getting developed. In the web also GUI was getting inserted. So in 1991 HTML was released on internet by Tim Berners-Lee, first really friendly interface. So basically what happened, in initial stages it was not that easy. People used to code and send and interact with the computer. Only those people who had the knowledge in the domain could use. But after that what happened, there were some interfaces built such as function key selection, question and answer, form filling, and menu selection. After that was done, then in 1970s alternate to typewriter there was human gesturing devices invented. And after that in finally 1984 Macintosh was released, which had really good GUI. And parallel at the same time web was also getting developed, and in 1991 HTML was released, which had a really friendly interface. Moving on, we have the question which is explain the brief history of screen design. Okay, if they ask you about the screen design, how many points you will remember? 3 points. If they ask you about screen design, how many points you have to remember? 3 points. Okay, just 3 images are sufficient. So basically, you have to write a few keywords regarding what happened initially. Initially, whenever there was a cathode ray tube, right, at that time, from that time, the screen is getting designed. Okay, and initial stage was in 1970s. In which year? 1970s. In 1970s, just the text was there, and you have to insert the data here. That was the first thing, and it was green and black background, like hackers how they use, right? The same thing was in the 1970s. Then came in 1980s some standardized versions where means the rules were formatted, so everyone had to do it in same way. Like title will be here, the subtitle will be here, input format is here, the main heading will be here, and what is to be performed, that is to be written here for the instructions for any new user. So all those things were in a standard format. This is in 1980s. Then the UI and the buttons and the text and the color and the thickness, all those things will be were invented. Okay, so at that time it became very good, like in 1990s and beyond. Okay, so this was very interactive also and user friendly. So this was the brief history of screen design. Moving on to the next super important question, define graphical user interface. Okay, graphical user interface is nothing but a user interface which is a collection of techniques and mechanisms to interact with something, that is called as user interface. If there is graphics involved in it, if there are some buttons and the icons, that is called as graphical user interface. In graphical user interface, the primary interaction mechanism is a pointing device, like for example mouse or keyboard, right, by using which you will interact. So what are the advantages? Also you have tried a few things, like for example whatever you see in the screen is called as objects. Whatever the actions you perform upon is called as actions and the operations, and the information utilizes the person's information processing capabilities, means the graphical each of the icon will be representing one of the actions. Okay, and it leads to reduces the memory loads, faster information processing. It can also add appeal, means it will look more beautiful. So that's what you have tried about the graphical user interface. You'll start with what is a user interface, a technique and mechanism to interact with something. Then if graphics is involved, if it has buttons and icons, that is called as graphical user interface. And whatever the icons you see is objects, whatever the actions you perform upon, it's called operations and actions. And it utilizes the person's information for processing whatever the person enters, that will be processed. It leads to less memory and faster information processing, and it also adds beauty to the system. Fine, that was about the graphical user interface. Moving on, we have the next question, which is explain direct and indirect manipulation of graphical system. What is direct and what is indirect? Direct means sudden. Indirect means not sudden. In between something will happen, then the final thing will happen. That is indirect, right? So in direct, what will happen? You will directly interact with the system's features. You will directly interact with what? System's features. There will be no buttons or anything. You will directly interact with the system. That is called as direct manipulation. Manipulation means just selecting and doing the task. Indirect means you will have an interface in which the buttons and the icons will be there. You will interact with the icons, and that will be mapped to the system's features. There the changes will happen, and that will be reflected back in the icon, and that you will be seeing. That is called as indirect manipulation. So few of the characteristics and disadvantages are also there. Characteristics is that the system should be portrayed as a real world. Like for example, if you have an app like camera, the camera icon should be shown, right? That is what is called the system should be portrayed as an extension of the real world. It should be continuously visible. Whatever action you perform should be incremental with visible display of results. That time only the changes should happen, and it should be visible, and it should be easily reversible. If you open the camera app using the back button, you can go back also, right? That should be possible, but every time it cannot be implemented due to the following. It is difficult to conceptualize in graphical system. Many operations can be difficult to conceptualize. Okay, and capability of the system may be limited. There will be limited amount of hardware or system resources, and the amount of space available in the screen can also be less, and it is difficult for the people to learn and remember all necessary operations and actions. If you directly interact with the system, you obviously need the knowledge of the domain, but every person does not have that, right? So that's why we use indirect manipulation. In indirect manipulation, we'll have instead pull downs or pop-up menus for symbols, and substitutes for typing for pointing. So if you want to type something, you can just point and click on the button, or if you want to select something, you can use pull down menus or pop-up menus. There are many options come, you just have to select it. There you need not do anything, you just have to select, and the inner operation associated with that will be performed. Okay, so basically direct means you'll be just directly interacting with the system. Indirect means you'll have some interface in between, like buttons and icons, using which you will be performing the activities. And the disadvantage is that you'll be having a less space or the less capacity, and all the operations not possible to implement. It's hard for the people to learn and remember every concept. Okay, moving on, we have the super important question, which is what are the advantages and disadvantages of graphical systems. So there are many advantages as well as many disadvantages which are written in January 2022 question paper. It was asked like what are the advantages of graphical user interface, mention any 10 for 10 marks. So you just have to mention 10 and explain in a few words the answers. Okay, so basically you can go through it. If you want, you can hear me out, and by hearing out, like what happens is it will be staying in your brain. So you need not memorize all, just by your own heart, what you do is just go through it. Okay, whatever comes to your mind comes, and whatever does not come, let it not come. Okay, so I'll be reading this out. Symbols recognized faster than text, means symbols will be there, they will be recognized faster than text. That is one of the advantage. Faster learning, you can learn faster problem solving. If the problem is more visible, what is the actual root cause, you'll be easily able to solve. Easier remembering, more natural. Exploits visual and spatial cues, means what is possible using visuals, you can use that. And fosters more concrete thinking. Concrete thinking means what is actually visible, not that the idea behind that is more visible in the graphical user interface. It provides context with fewer errors and increased control. Immediate feedback, predictable system responses, easily reversible actions. If you perform some action, how do you go back? That is easily seen in the graphical user interface. Less anxiety, more attractive, may consume less space. Replaces national language. That means no matter who in the world is, if you show camera to them, they will obviously understand it's a camera, right, without using any language. Easily augmented with text displays. Low typing requirements, you can you just use the icons to do the tasks. And smooth transition from the commercial language system. Moving on to the disadvantages: greater design complexity. Learning is still necessary because without learning you can't do anything. Lack of experimentally derived design guidelines. So it's just test and trail and test. It is not experimentally derived. Okay. Inconsistencies are there, and working domain is the present. It might not be always familiar. Human comprehension limitations. Human might not comprehend what actually could be done, and window manipulation techniques, production limitation, few tested icons exist, only few tested icons exist, other all are just in the trails. Okay. Inefficient for touch typists, and inefficient for expert users, because if graphical user interface is there and they're expert users, that will be a limitation for them. They can use without this one also very fast, so by using this their time is getting slightly wasted. Okay. Not always preferred by the style of interaction or the not the fastest style of interaction as well. Increased chances of clutter and confusion, may consume more screen space, and hardware limitations are also there. Okay. So I hope so at least you'll be remembering 5 among them. So just go through it once, you'll again remember at least 10. Fine. So make sure you go through this very important question from exam point of view. Moving on, we have what are the characteristics of graphical user interface. Okay. So here also the same thing, just the points I've written here, you can expand it in your own words. Make sure you know the characteristics very well. A super important question from exam point of view. Sophisticated visual presentation, a very good presentation will be there. Pick and click, pick the icon and click it and perform your own task. Restricted set of interface options means once you open a menu, not all the things will be coming, only few things will be coming. If you click on that, more things will be coming, and so on. And visualization is a very good feature of the graphical user interface. Orientation means how the object should be displayed, that things, and many sub points are there. What the people see on the screen, composed of sub objects, and data objects present information. There are different kinds of objects. For example, data object present information, container object contains another object, device objects represent physical objects, collection is a simple relationship between two different objects, constraint is a stronger relationship, means a limitation of imposed upon the object. Composite exists when the relation is so strong that it's like aggregation. Okay. And these relationships define an object type. Another important characteristic is the persistence, means how long the icon will exist in the screen, that is called as persistence. Properties and attributes can also be changed, that are the unique characteristics. Actions and views, those can be used to perform operations upon the system. Views are nothing but how it should be looked upon the information by using the screen. Use of recognition memory, continuous visibility of objects encourages the person to move out of the situation of out of sight or out of mind problem. Means if it is visible and then it becomes invisible, then the person will forget what was visible there. And last one is concurrent performance of fractions, sorry, concurrent performance of functions. So the functions are continuously performed and they are performed parallelly. So these are some of the basic features. Basically what you have to do is how beautiful it is, that you have to say first. Pick and click, how easy it is, and what are the different ways in which you can represent the features by using the object orientation. What are the different properties and the attributes and the actions and the views you can perform upon, and you can perform different operations concurrently. Moving on, we have the next question, which is super important, and it's web user interface. What is web user interface? The user interface in the web is called web user interface. Okay. So in web, basically we navigate and go to the new links and the information is presented. That's what web interface design is, essentially the design of the navigation and the presentation of information. Okay. So proper interface is basically the structured way of representing the information. That is what is called the proper interface. So in this, it's actually hard to implement the user interface because it's the HTML language and it's difficult to manipulate it, as well as the architecture and the type flow is neither of which is easy to standardize. If they ask you about the GUI versus web, what are the characteristics and what are the characteristics of web interface individually or just GUI independently, you can answer this in this way. Okay. So what you can do is remember these characteristics. The characteristics are given here and the application is given here. Okay. So I'll be going through it quickly. You can remember whatever the points you feel to remember. And here the first characteristic is the devices. GUI is for specific device. Web is customizable. Like it can be used for different purposes, but when you use for GUI, it is for a specific device. User focuses more on data and applications in GUI, whereas information and navigation is more in web. Data is trustful data in both the information and the data, whereas in the web it is unknown content and unreliable. It is not tested. Okay. User task, it is to install, configure and all. Here will be linking, reading and doing the browser transitions. Presentation, here is the windows menus and control button are there. Here the browser and page is only there. Navigation is in the form of menus, list and dialog, link, URL and block, bookmarks in the form of web. And interaction, clicking the menus by using single click only you can do, or you can do double click. Response time is instant, it is variable. System capability, here a lot of capacity is there based on the hardware and the software configurations. Here it is limited because the server is limited. Okay, and here we have task efficiency, specific task, it is general task. Assume web as public and GUI as private, and what are the features of both public and private that you can write here. Consistency, major objective is within the across the applications. Site establish their own identity, it is independent and it has application with different devices. User assistance, integral part of the most systems, not similar heap systems. Integration, it is individual and it is seamless integration, means many are connected with the devices. Here it is individual, means one website is for just its own purpose. Okay, security, it is tightly controlled. Reliability, and it is tightly controlled, means more secure and more reliable the GUI. And here it is susceptible and unknown content. Fine. So going through it once again, what is the main things you have to keep in mind is it is specific and customizable. Okay, it is specific and general, and here it is more better, here it is not more better. Here more capacity is there, trustful, reliable, and more secure. Here it is not that much. Okay, and the navigation is also in the better form. Here it is just single click or just going into a new screen and coming back from it. And the response time is also faster. Here it is variable here. So basically in that way you can form some point here. And it integrates also with other apps. It does not integrate, it is just whatever, once the website is created, it's just for its own purpose. Fine. So those are the things which you can write in the characteristics. Moving on, we have intranet versus internet. Intranet means in an organization, if computer systems are connected, that is called as intranet. Internet means many different organizations are interconnected with each other. Okay, that is called as internet. So they differ in some important areas. Users, here users are less, here users are more in internet. Task, the private tasks are performed in intranet, and in internet the public tasks are performed. Type of info, intranet has confidential and the private information which is important and not to be leaked to the outside world. In internet it is more public information. Amount of info in internet, it is more because it is detailed information. Here just general specific brief information is given in the internet. Hardware and software is more complicated in the intranet because it uses faster and more reliable data. In internet it is just a normal one. Design philosophy, the design is more complicated in intranet than internet. Okay. Principles of user interface design is the last question from this module, and it's a super important question. So here the mainly two things you have to write. First you have to state the principles of Xerox star, then you have to write the principles of general, like for example user interface as well as Xerox star. What are the combined principles? So here very common words are there, just you have to remember how much ever you can. But in Xerox star there are few things here which you need to keep in mind. Let me tell you the key points you need to write in each of these. The illusion of manipulable object, the first principle is illusion of manipulable objects. Means actually we will be defining an icon, right? By clicking that icon some action will be performed. That is just an illusion. The icon is just an interface, the icon won't do anything, but when we click that icon we believe that the icon is doing the background thing, but that's not actually what is happening. Okay. Visual order and viewer focus. Visual order means it should be well ordered. Viewer focus means where the viewer wants to focus more, there only the actual relevant content should be there. For example, if you have a screen here and you are putting an image in between, some text is there, so it will not be looking good, right? After the text is over you can put an image at the end, that will be more better. So where the viewer focus is there, at there you should include relevant information. Reveal structure, better structure should be there. Consistency should be there, it should not be like some information is here then unwanted information here then some other information. It's not like that. Okay, it should be consistent. Appropriate effect or emotional impact, whenever you click something it should give some effect or the sound to the user like whatever you have clicked. And emotional impact means if you are doing something it should be in sync with the emotions. If you are doing some sad thing there, it should not play happy music. Fine. A match with the medium, whatever the medium or the context you are doing the thing at, it should match with the medium, means the interface. Okay. And some general principles. Aesthetically means beautiful, clarity, compatibility, comprehensibility, configurability, consistency, control, directness, efficiency, and familiarity, flexibility. Forgiveness means if the user makes some error it should not just close the system, it should say what the error has been done and how you can go back from it. And predictability means what you click and what is the result of it, that should be in advance told to the user so that the user makes proper decisions. Recovery from the errors, responsiveness to whatever is done. Simplicity in the design, transparency means what you are doing, it should be clearly visible in background what is happening. And trade-offs means if you increase the space, time will be reduced. If you increase the time, space will be reduced. So that's all for this module. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to my channel for more videos like this, and thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.